What really makes an organization trustworthy? Especially, one that handles public money, your money, my money, and what's uh, that crucial job, often working behind the scenes that makes sure it's all accounted for. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling exactly that. We're looking at a nation's chief financial watchdog. Specifically, we're diving into the office of the Auditor General of Nepal, an independent body, and really vital for good governance. Now, for this deep dive, our info comes from some really detailed class notes on Nepal's Audit Act, stuff prepared for folks training to be chartered accountants. So think of this as your shortcut to getting genuinely clued up without needing the textbook yourself. Our mission, simple, really. We're pulling out the key insights from these notes, giving you a clear picture, what this office does, how it works, and crucially, why it matters to all of us. Get ready for some maybe surprising facts and maybe a few aha moments, too. Okay, so to really get a grip on how public funds are watched over, we have to start with the watchdog itself, the Auditor General, and how they get into that crucial role is pretty interesting. The office itself, the Office of the Auditor General of Nepal, goes way back. Established June 29th, 1959. That's 21-60315 in the Bikram Sambat calendar. The first AG was appointed back then under the constitution of the time.
Yeah, and that history leads to a very modern appointment process now, one that really emphasizes independence. Today, the president appoints the Auditor General, but, and this is key, only based on the recommendation of the Constitutional Council. So it's not just some political appointment. It's a high-level thing designed to make sure there's broad agreement and independence right from the start.
That sounds pretty serious. What kind of background does someone need to even be in the running for a job like that?
Oh, the criteria are tough, really demanding. You either need to have served in the special class of the government of Nepal, that's a very senior civil service rank, or you need at least 20 years of audit experience. And that's after getting a bachelor's degree in management, commerce, or accounting, or after passing a chartered accountancy exam.
Wow. Okay. So a real heavyweight in finance or government. Is there more to it than just the experience, like ethical stuff?
Absolutely. And this is vital, a crucial ethical rule.
Hmm.
You cannot be a member of any political party when you're appointed. That immediately sets them apart, doesn't it? Plus, you need to be at least 45 years old and, obviously have high moral character.
And once they're in, the job sounds incredibly secure. A fixed 6-year term, you said. And this bit's fascinating. Once you've been the AG, you can't be appointed to another government job later.
That's right. That security, that fixed term, it's so important.
So tell me about that rule, the one about no other government jobs afterwards. That sounds like a really strong way to guarantee independence.
It's a masterstroke, really. It means the AG doesn't have to worry about, pleasing people to get their next job. They can focus solely on the audit work, make tough calls without fear or favor. It's fundamental for real independence.
Makes sense. So given how protected the role is, what does it actually take to remove an Auditor General? It can't be easy.
No, it's not. The conditions are very strict. They can resign, obviously, or they leave when they reach 65. They can be impeached, which is a whole parliamentary process, or removed by the president, but again, only on the Constitutional Council's recommendation, and only if there's a proven physical or mental illness making them unable to work, or, if they pass away while in office. It really reinforces that security. You can't just get rid of them for doing their job properly.
Okay, so the person is independent. What about the office they run? The Office of the Auditor General, the OAG. How does that function? Can they set up offices anywhere?
Well, the AG can establish offices where needed, both at the federal level and in the provinces. The staff in those offices work directly under the AG's instructions. And the structure of the office, the number of positions and all that, it gets approved by the government of Nepal, but only based on the AG's recommendation. So they control their own operational setup, which is another layer of independence.
Right. So when we say audit here, it's clearly not just about checking the math, is it? What does audit really involve for this office?
You're exactly right. It's much broader. The definition talks about examination of accounts and analysis and evaluation made. And crucially, it also includes re-verification of audit discrepancies or follow-up audit. That points to ongoing oversight, not just a one-time check.
Follow up. So they don't just find problems, they check if they got fixed.
Precisely. They're looking at patterns, trends, and making sure that issues they flagged actually get addressed. It's about continuous improvement.
Okay, and you mentioned documents related to accounts. That sounds like it could be a lot more than just ledgers.
Oh, it is. Hugely expansive. It's not just the financial statements. We're talking policies, work plans, big decisions, contracts, agreements, progress reports, even electronic records now. It really covers the whole ecosystem of how an organization works financially and operationally. They need to be able to trace everything.
Wow. Okay. That is incredibly thorough. So who exactly gets audited? Who falls under this massive reach?
The scope is vast. It covers practically every part of public administration. Think about it. The president's office, the vice presidents, the Supreme Court, federal parliament, state assemblies, local governments, all the constitutional bodies, courts, the attorney general, and even the security forces, the Nepal Army, Nepal Police, the Armed Police Force. Very few corners of public spending escape their view.
That's staggering, actually. And for all these audits, you mentioned these 5 key criteria they use: regularity, economy, efficiency, effectiveness, and propriety. Can we quickly touch on why those 5? Why are they the bedrock? Maybe just a quick example.
Yeah, those 5 are the lens, basically. They're not just about ticking boxes or following rules. They're about making sure public money is used well, wisely, ethically. Take economy, for instance. It's not just about spending less. It's about getting the best value for every rupee spent. Are we getting a good return on public investment? It's about ensuring government work genuinely benefits the public.
That makes total sense. So with those principles in mind, how do they actually do the audits? Is it just one big check at the end of the year?
Oh no, it's more varied than that. There's the final audit, which is what most people think of the year-end check. They look at the financial activities, maybe for the whole organization, maybe just parts of it. They can do it in detail, or just spot checks, sometimes even surprise visits. And that leads to a report with their opinion on the financial statements.
Okay, the classic audit. But you mentioned they're proactive too.
Exactly. They also do periodical, contemporary, or follow-up audits. This shows they're watching things as they happen. These can be done before the financial year even ends or right after certain transactions are done. Shows real ongoing oversight.
Then what about things like foreign aid or government grants?
Yep, covered explicitly. There's a grants or donations audit that looks at all types of grants or donations, whether they're received by the government or given out by the government, federal, provincial, or local. Really important for transparency there.
And then there are these specialized audits. That sounds fascinating.
This is where it gets really interesting, moving beyond traditional finance. The AG can perform information technology audits, vital now, right? Also, functioning audits, looking at how well an organization actually works, gender audits, looking at impacts on gender equality, forensic audits, digging deep into suspected fraud, and environment audits. It shows how modern their oversight is. It's not just about the money, but systems, social impact, the environment.
And who decides how those specialized audits are done?
The AG does. They prescribe the procedures, the scope, how the reporting works for these specialized types. Gives them flexibility to adapt as new issues pop up.
And crucially, all these reports, once done, go to the entity audited, but they're also made public, so you, the listener, can actually see the findings.
Transparency is a huge part of it.
So how does this work in practice across all these different kinds of organizations? They can't audit everyone the same way, surely.
No, they adapt the approach. For the core government offices, the President's office, ministries, courts, the Army, etc., the OAG, the Auditor General's own office, does the audits directly with their own staff.
Okay, straightforward enough. But what about all the local governments? Municipalities, rural municipalities, there must be hundreds of them. How does the OAG handle that sheer volume?
Good question. Every single municipality and rural municipality has to get its accounts audited by the AG. It's mandatory. The AG might issue a separate report for each one, and those reports then get presented and discussed right there in the local assemblies.
So it brings accountability right down to the local level. People in that community can see what's happening with their local funds.
Exactly. Grassroots accountability.
What about government-owned companies, like, say, the Electricity Authority or the Oil Corporation, the ones fully owned by the government? Does the OAG audit them directly, too?
For those wholly owned bodies, the AG can appoint licensed auditors, private sector CAs, maybe to act as assistants. But, and this is crucial, those auditors work under the direction, supervision, and control of the Auditor General. The AG even sets their fees based on the workload.
So they can bring in outside help, but keep tight control. Smart. What if the government owns a majority, say over 50%, but not the whole thing? Like maybe Nepal Telecom.
That's another interesting setup. For those bodies with more than 50% government ownership, they actually appoint their own auditors. However, they can only do that after consulting with the AG, and they have to follow auditing principles the AG lays down.
Okay, so the AG still has influence.
More than influence. A copy of that audit report has to go to the OAG. And here's the kicker. The AG can then issue directives about any irregularities found in that report. and both the company and its auditors must follow those directives. They even have to report back on how they're implementing them.
Wow. So even when they don't do the audit themselves, the AG still has the power to enforce changes based on the findings. That's quite a reach.
It really is. It ensures that even these partially owned entities are held to account.
And I guess there are other specific organizations, like the central bank maybe, that are legally required to be audited by the AG.
Yes, exactly. Federal laws specify other bodies, too, like the Nepal Rashtra Bank, the Central Bank, the Citizen Investment Trust, Social Welfare Council, National Insurance Board. The law explicitly puts them under the AG's audit mandate.
Right. So the legal framework really backs up this wide scope. Okay, let's circle back to those 5 big principles: regularity, economy, efficiency, effectiveness, propriety. We touched on them, but let's make them really concrete. What do these actually mean for, you listening at home? How does this affect the average citizen? These aren't just jargon, right?
Not at all. They're the heart of ensuring public money is used well. They answer that basic question: is our money being used wisely, legally, and for the public good? Let's break them down a bit. Regularity is pretty fundamental. It asks, did the money get spent for the specific purpose it was budgeted for? Was it within the approved limits? Basically, did it follow the rules?
Simple enough. Did it go where it was supposed to? What about efficiency? That sounds like it's about being smart with resources.
Exactly. Efficiency looks at things like, is the project actually making progress as reported? Or are things stuck? Or are different people or agencies doing the same job unnecessarily? Is there duplication and waste? It's about minimizing that waste and getting the most out of the resources used.
Okay. And effectiveness, is that about whether the spending actually achieved its goal?
Precisely. Effectiveness asks, is the government doing a good job of collecting all the money it's supposed to? Or is revenue leaking out somewhere? Are there good internal controls to prevent misuse, and are they actually being followed? And were the project's goals clear in the first place? Did the plans make sense? And was the implementation actually working towards those goals? Are they getting the intended results?
Right. Then economy, is that just about being cheap?
Not just cheap, but value for money. Economy asks, was the spending done properly? Did they analyze the costs versus the benefits? Are the returns worth the investment? It's about smart spending, ensuring we get good value.
Okay, value for money. And the last one, propriety. This sounds like it goes beyond just the rules.
It absolutely does. This is often where public trust really comes into play. Propriety asks, even if something was technically legal or authorized, was it right? Was it reasonable? The AG specifically looks for spending that seems unreasonably made or in a manner to cause loss and damage to the national property, even if it followed the budget rules.
So even if technically allowed, if it just looks plain wrong or wasteful, the AG can call it out.
Yes. They also look at things like giving away national property or issuing leases or licenses in a way that means the government loses out on revenue it should be getting. They scrutinize big contracts, public works, procurement, consultancy services, and they can even check if officials carried out their duties accountably. It's about ethical conduct, not just technical compliance.
But they don't get bogged down in tiny details.
Right. The notes mention that minor discrepancies might be left out of the main report so they can focus everyone's attention on the really significant issues, the ones that have a real impact.
Okay, so with all these deep dives and these strong principles, what kind of actual power does the AG have? What teeth do they have if they find something wrong?
They have quite an arsenal. First up is access and information. The AG can demand any relevant documents from officials anytime. And that includes getting info not just from government offices, but also from organizations receiving government grants, contractors, suppliers, even NGOs, national or international, if they're involved with public funds. Nobody can really hide the books.
And presumably that includes digital information too, right? Not just paper.
Oh, absolutely crucial now. They have the right to access any IT system used for financial transactions, accounting, or record keeping. That's vital today.
Okay, so they can get the information. What else?
They also have financial and expert authority. The OAG can charge fees for auditing those fully government-owned companies, and that money goes into the government's main fund. And importantly, the AG can bring in outside help. They can hire any expert they need for a specific audit, or they can request experts or officials be temporarily assigned to them from other government bodies.
And the other bodies have to comply.
They must comply. If the AG needs an engineer or an IT security expert, the relevant agency has to provide them. It ensures they have the right skills for any audit.
Okay, now for the enforcement. This is where the real power lies, isn't it? Directives and enforcement.
This is where they show their teeth, yes.
Yeah.
They don't just suggest, they can direct. They can order bodies to fix how they keep accounts or to ensure regularity. They could even tell those other auditors, the ones auditing the 50% owned companies, exactly what specific things they need to look into and include in their reports. So they influence the quality and focus of those audits too.
And what if someone just doesn't cooperate? Or if there's serious misconduct?
That's the big one. The AG can formally write for action. They can demand that the relevant authority take legal or departmental action against any official who obstructs the audit, doesn't provide info, doesn't get accounts audited, messes up the accounts, or generally violates the Audit Act.
And the authority has to act.
They must take action without delay and report back to the OAG about what they've done. So it's not just finding problems, it's pushing for accountability and consequences.
And they manage their own affairs too. Staff rewards, delegation.
Yes, the AG manages their own office, rewards good performance, delegates tasks, and can even draft necessary rules to implement the Audit Act, though they do that in consultation with the government.
What about the standards they audit against? Do they just make them up?
No, they have the power of setting standards. The AG can create and enforce specific auditing standards or directives. These are based on international standards and best practices. The goal is to make the audits high quality, objective, reliable, and valid. So Nepal's audits are benchmarked against global norms.
Okay, so they have a lot of power. But what about checks on the AG's office itself? Are there safeguards?
Yes, there are important safeguards, oversight, and reporting mechanisms. Firstly, there's protection for the auditors doing the work. OAG employees aren't personally liable for errors or damages if they're acting in good faith and following the AG standards and directions. This protects their independence, lets them do their job without fear of personal lawsuits for making tough calls.
That's vital. And how do they ensure their own work is up to scratch?
They have internal quality control. The AG arranges for periodic quality assurance reviews or peer reviews of the audits they conduct. And importantly, no other body can review their audits in this way. It maintains their independence while still having a quality check. It's a kind of self-regulation.
Makes sense. Are they keeping up with technology internally?
Seems so. The notes say the AG can maintain audit files, working papers, and other documents electronically. So embracing digital record keeping for efficiency and security.
And the reporting. How does the public find out what they've discovered?
Public reporting is key. There's an annual report submitted to the president. It summarizes everything. The work done, the main findings, how previous findings are being implemented, plans for future reforms, other key issues, and critically, that annual report must be made public. Full transparency.
Not just the big annual one, right? There are others.
Correct. The AG can issue those specific reports we mentioned, IT, forensic, gender, environment audits. Those can be separate. And importantly for decentralization, separate annual reports are prepared for each province. These go to the provincial chief, and then they're presented to the provincial assembly. So accountability is pushed down to the provincial level too.
What if they find something really urgent, a massive loss about to happen?
They have an emergency power for that. If they see a significant loss to national property happening or about to happen, they can jump in, audit immediately, and submit a special report straight to the president or the provincial chief. Allows for rapid response.
Okay, so the reports get written, they get published, but the crucial step is implementation, right? What happens after the report lands?
This is the so what factor, exactly. The law makes it the duty of the responsible official in the audited entity to implement the findings and recommendations in the AG's report. It's not optional.
And the AG just hopes they do it.
Not at all. The AG has strong follow-up power. They don't just issue the report and move on. They actively track implementation. They can demand progress reports, ask for explanations, set deadlines for implementation, even go back and re-examine things and issue further directions if needed. They stay involved to ensure changes happen.
So the audited bodies have to act on the findings.
Yes, the concerned body must take action, according to the law, to fix the errors and irregularities identified.
One last piece you mentioned, standardizing accounts.
Right. To make auditing effective across the board, you need consistent accounting. The AG actually approves the standard format for how all government offices must keep their accounts. And then it's the job of the Office of the Comptroller General to get that format formally approved and make sure everyone uses it. Consistency is key for comparability and effective oversight.
Okay, let's try and pull this all together. What we've seen is that the Auditor General of Nepal is this incredibly important independent office. They have this huge scope, digging into almost every area of public spending using those five core principles: regularity, economy, efficiency, effectiveness, and propriety. And they've got real power, real teeth to enforce their findings and demand accountability. It really does seem like a cornerstone for financial transparency and good governance.
Absolutely. It's a powerful mechanism designed to safeguard public funds and build trust. Which leads to a final thought, perhaps, for you, the listener. Consider this. How does this kind of detailed, rigorous, independent oversight actually shape public trust? Does it build it? Can it erode it if findings are ignored? And what lessons can we take from Nepal's Auditor General about the kinds of checks and balances that are needed in any large organization, public or private, that manages significant resources? Something to think about.